As we say goodbye to one winter storm, we look towards the great state of Texas for the next winter storm that will impact the United States. Will the cold pattern ever break? We have all the details and more next at the Weather Farm. Welcome to the Weather Farm. We are talking about a major winter storm that's going to make its way from Texas all the way to Maine over the next several days. As we begin our Tuesday, we see snow across parts of Colorado making its way to Denver. 2 to 4 inches is likely in those lower elevations. We also have lake effect snows off of Lake Ontario. This is all associated with an area of low pressure that has moved off the coast into the Canadian Maritimes and is bringing wraparound snow showers to northern New England. We also see an area of low pressure starting to make its way onto our map as here in British Columbia, bringing coastal rains and heavy mountain snows for the higher elevations. It is this area of low pressure that is going to become a major winter storm as it makes its way through Mexico from Texas and all the way to the East Coast. So on our Wednesday, we see an area of high pressure starting to build across the Intermountain West. This is going to help keep this area of low pressure on that southerly track as this high builds in. That rain that came onto shore onto British Columbia is now going to move into Alberta, bringing mountain snows there. But most of the eastern 2/3 of the country are going to be under the influence of high areas of high pressure. We have one here in Kansas, the one back in southeastern Idaho, one over Ontario. But all of this is going to set the stage for the coldest air to make its way in the eastern half of the United States for our Wednesday night and our Thursday night into Friday. So we're going to get to those temperatures here in a minute, but we're going to keep our eye on this area of low pressure, and we're going to set our maps into motion as we see how this particular storm system is going to develop. The first model we are going to look at is the GFS model. So as we go into our Tuesday, there's that snow in Colorado. We see that area of low pressure making its way down into Mexico. It's going to then start to pick up moisture from the Pacific, spread it into far western Texas, so places like El Paso, you could see some snow, even down into Mexico, those higher elevations. But it's going to tap into some Gulf moisture, and by our Thursday night into Friday, that's when it really gets its act going. Northeastern Texas, eastern Oklahoma, the state of Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana. You're going to see significant snowfall with this. And that low pressure system, as it crosses the Appalachians, it's going to continue to intensify. By the time it gets off the coast of Virginia, it's about 1,003 millibar low. It's going to rapidly deepen into a bomb cyclone off Cape Cod by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday. So this is one particular situation model run that we are looking at. And the reason that we see that this particular model run is a little bit more aggressive is because it's going to tap into 2 moisture sources. It's going to tap into the Pacific moisture, and it's going to be strong enough that it's going to draw it across through Texas, and at the same time, with this counterclockwise rotation, it's going to be able to start tapping into the Gulf of Mexico as a secondary low forms near the Texas-Louisiana border. And it is that energy that's going to carry and race that storm northeastward by the time we get to our Saturday morning to Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, and it's really going to bring heavy snows potentially to the New England area. Now the European model has a slightly different solution, and it's basically because of this area of high pressure. So we have the same setup with the low down here in Mexico. It's going to also pull Pacific moisture and it's going to pull Gulf moisture, but look, those highs are setting a little bit further south. So what it's going to do is it's going to spread snow across Texas, ice maybe across the Dallas, Fort Worth, and Austin areas, heavy rain along the coast. But this area of high pressure is going to kind of keep this low a little bit further south, and it's going to keep it from really intensifying. And so it's really going to go out to sea off the coast of the Carolinas by the time we get to our Saturday afternoon, Sunday evening. So we have the area of high pressure working against this low from really taking that northeasterly track. And so the snowfall amounts will probably be more confined to Kentucky, Tennessee, and the southeast with the European model, if that's the one that wins out, compared to the GFS, which brought heavy snows all the way up into the Ohio Valley. So again, kind of watching this. Oklahoma, Arkansas, both models have heavy snow for you. Which one eventually wins out? We're going to have to watch that over the next several days as this system develops. And in terms of snowfall, this is the GFS output. So this is the snow from the systems on Tuesday and Wednesday. But look, as we get to our Thursday night, how quickly the snowfall falls across parts of northern Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, really through southern Arkansas, into northern Mississippi, western Tennessee, all the way up to Indiana and Illinois. The other model that we look at also is the European model. And again, remember, that one stayed a little bit further south. So it spreads the heavy snow through Texas into Arkansas, just like the GFS model did. It also brings heavy snow into northern Mississippi, but it does keep it suppressed a little further south. So that heavy snow just goes maybe up through Indianapolis and points south along I-70 through St. Louis and points south. Something we're definitely going to watch over the next several days as this system, again, continues to develop. So this is our forecasted low temperatures for Wednesday morning. When you wake up tomorrow morning on Wednesday, we're going to see widespread sub-zero temperatures from Kansas through Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, into Kentucky. Basically, where we saw the heaviest of snows in this 10 to 18-inch swath of snow that crossed 4 states, that is where the coldest temperatures are going to be. But look, we have 30s and 20s making their way all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Even down in Mississippi and Alabama, even down towards Tampa, you're going to be in the low 40s by the time we wake up on Wednesday morning. Look, across parts of Ontario, 30 to 40 degrees below zero. This is definitely the coldest air the eastern half of the United States has seen all year. And it's not limited just to the eastern half of the United States. Across the Intermountain West as well, down into New Mexico, teens and 20s, Arizona, 19 there in Nevada. The cold air is even going to spread west. So almost every state will be sub-freezing by the time we wake up on our Wednesday morning. It's one of those rare things that we haven't seen so far this winter. We do see a little bit of moderation, especially here in Texas, because as that low pressure gets going, it starts to build that counterclockwise rotation, so it's going to start to pull some of that warmer air off of the Gulf. So it's going to help keep your temperatures a little bit warmer Thursday morning as that area of low pressure gets going. But we're going to also see, again, widespread 30s and 20s and 30s across the deep south. That area of sub-zero temperatures moves towards Champaign, towards Indianapolis and Cincinnati for our Thursday morning. Across parts of Ontario, just south and west of Hudson Bay, 30 to 40 degrees below zero. And we do see a slight moderation through parts of Nevada into eastern and Washington and Oregon for our low temperatures on Thursday morning. So is this pattern, is it locking in? That's the question that we are getting asked a lot here. What is the long-term outlook for the weather for the month of January? So we can look at the upper air patterns. This is the 500 millibar anomaly chart. What we see right now is we see a strong area of high pressure, a Greenland blocking high that is present right now. And it's allowing cold air to spread across most of the lower 48. The exception being the far west coast of the United States. Warm air ridging is being kept across parts of Canada, at least warmer for this time of year. We do see some troughs through the Gulf of Alaska. We do see ridging building towards the Gulf of Alaska as we get toward the end of this week. And that's going to set the stage for that massive winter storm to cross from Texas through the Dixie Valley and make its way to the East Coast. By the time we get toward the weekend, most of the United States will be under the influence of some kind of trough, with the ridging pushed well north into Canada. That pattern, as we look at the CFS V2 model, We see this here in the weekly 500-week anomalies. This is where we are this week. We have a strong high pressure over Greenland. Here is the United States. So we see that trough of those cooler than normal temperatures being funneled into the lower 48. We also see a ridge of high pressure just to the south and west of Alaska. As we get into next week, we start to see that ridging break down just slightly, especially that ridging starts to push off towards Europe, away from Greenland. The area of trough that has brought the colder air to the eastern half of the United States, it starts to moderate, move offshore just slightly. But as we get into the third week of January, and this is again January 20th through the 26th, we see strong ridging building towards Alaska. And I mean, this is anomalously high for Alaska at this time of the year. And so what it's doing is it's going to allow all the cold air, it's going to push it down from the poles, it's going to push it down into the eastern half of the United States. So we're going to see a continued pattern for at least 3 weeks of continued cold weather for the eastern half of the United States as we see trough after trough moving across this area. As we get down towards the last week of January, toward the first few days of February, we start to see that trough migrating back north. We start to see a little bit of that high off of Alaska, that ridging, move a little bit west of Alaska, and it's going to allow a little bit return flow and some ridging to form across the lower 48. So a lot of changes, but we do see a constant pattern over the next 3 weeks of continued troughs and colder than normal temperatures for the eastern half of the United States. It's not until we get towards the end of the month that we start to see a pattern change happening. And I think, this third week here, this is an interesting time period because we can really see the effects of this ridge building in Alaska in the temperatures that are forecast during that time. So this is around the 14th and 15th of January. Over in Siberia, we have 40 and 50 degree temperatures below zero. Those move across the north slope of Alaska into the interior, 40 to 50 degrees. But look, we start to see that ridging building by the 18th. Areas on the north slope that were minus 40 are now going to be in the mid 30s, so a 70-degree temperature change in about a 48 to 72 hour period. That shows you the power of that ridging that's going to build. And what it's going to do is we see all this cold air, it's going to funnel this cold air down into the lower parts of the United States. As we talked about with that ridging that's going to build across the Yukon, across the Gulf of Alaska by that third week of January, we're going to see widespread from coast to coast below normal temperatures are predicted by the Climate Prediction Center. And we see either above normal or near normal precipitation. So this is going to be a close eye on watching to see, do we get more storms making their way out of the south and making their way to the northeast? Are we seeing more clipper systems diving out of Alberta into the lower 48 that could bring continued rounds of snow to the lower 48? So a lot to be determined. It's not towards the end of the month that we start to see hints of a pattern change for the eastern half of the United States. Well, that is the weather forecast here from the Weather Farm. We hope you've enjoyed that. If you've not done it, like and subscribe, share this channel with your friends, comment, let us know where you're watching from. We had a lot of good comments from our live streams over the weekend, a lot of good interaction. We really like to know what's on your mind, what kind of weather you're seeing in your neck of the woods. So let us know, and we'll hope to see you soon.